What if I told you there's a hidden motivation switch tucked away deep inside your brain that can unlock a level of drive way more powerful than money or praise or fame? A switch that can literally force your brain to crave doing the hard things you keep putting off. Well, today, we're going to find that switch and we're going to flip it on.
All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to start with the problem we all know and hate. Then we'll look at the two kinds of fuel that power us. We'll break down the 5 core motivators with a real-life story. Peek under the hood at the brain science behind all this. And then we'll wrap up with a hands-on guide to upgrade your own internal engine.
So, first things first, let's talk about the motivation problem. I want to start with a feeling that I'm pretty sure is going to be incredibly familiar to every single one of us. I mean, it's the universal question, right? You know exactly what you need to do. You've got the plan, you know it'll get you closer to your goals, so why does your brain just refuse to cooperate sometimes? Why does that drive just seem to evaporate into thin air right when you need it the most?
Oh, you know the feeling. The alarm goes off, and all that motivation you had last night, gone. The blanket feels like it's literally made of concrete. You finally drag yourself to your desk, and that blinking cursor on the screen, it's just sitting there, mocking you, while the really important stuff just sits there, untouched. The day ends, and you're left with that sting of disappointment.
But here is the absolute key. If this sounds like you, listen up. You are not lazy. Procrastination is not the real enemy here, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. The real issue is that you're running on the wrong kind of fuel.
Okay, so if we're running on the wrong kind of fuel, what's the right kind? It's time to break down the 2 fundamentally different types of motivational fuel that we all use. So, on one side, you've got extrinsic motivation, the external stuff like money, status, getting a pat on the back. Think of this as fossil fuel. Sure, it gives you a jolt of energy, but it's dirty, it's temporary, and it eventually runs out. What's crazy is that our brains are wired so the anticipation of the reward is way more exciting than actually getting it. So the high is always super short-lived. But then, on the other side, you have intrinsic motivation. This comes from the inside, from curiosity, purpose, mastery. This is like fusion energy. It's clean, it's self-sustaining, and it is unbelievably efficient. With this fuel, the work itself becomes the reward.
So how in the world do we tap into more of that fusion energy? To really get this, let's walk through a personal story of someone who went from total burnout to complete rediscovery.
Now, these 5 elements you see here, this is basically the complete blueprint for our internal drive. You've got curiosity, which is that simple, powerful itch to learn. Purpose, that's connecting what you do to a cause you genuinely care about. Mastery is that drive to just get better and better. Autotelicity, which is a bit of a mouthful, is just loving the activity for its own sake. And finally, autonomy, that crucial feeling that you are in the driver's seat.
So let's look at this guy, Rian. He was on the path to get his PhD in neuroscience. For the first few years, his drive was just off the charts. He was totally passionate about the subject. But over time, that fire started to fade. The days just felt like this endless, soul-crushing grind, and he had no idea why. So, when he actually sat down and analyzed his situation using this framework, the problem became crystal clear. His curiosity and purpose? Sky high. He loved the topic, he believed in its importance. But look at the bottom 3. His sense of mastery was low. He felt like he wasn't really improving his skills. His autotelicity was in the gutter. He hated the day-to-day grind of crunching data. And his autonomy was basically zero. He was stuck on this academic hamster wheel with no control.
So he made this massive career shift. He left academia and co-founded a business. And this is where it all clicked. In his own business, curiosity and purpose were still high, but now mastery, autotelicity, and autonomy went through the roof. He could learn new skills every day, he actually loved the creative hustle, and he had total control. For the first time, all 5 motivators were firing on all cylinders.
Rian's story is such a powerful example of what happens when you get these motivators aligned. But why? Why is it so incredibly potent? To understand that, we got to look at what's actually happening inside your brain.
So, when your intrinsic motivators are all cranked up, your brain floods itself with this perfect, performance-enhancing neurochemical cocktail. You get norepinephrine for focus, dopamine for drive, and acetylcholine for learning. And this doesn't just feel good, it literally lowers your cognitive load and primes your brain to enter that magical state of peak performance we call flow.
And this is where things get really cool. It creates an incredible virtuous cycle. High intrinsic motivation helps you access flow state. But then, the experience of being in flow is so amazing and rewarding that it feeds back and boosts your intrinsic motivation even more. So the more motivated you are, the more flow you get. The more flow you get, the more motivated you become. It's a feedback loop that basically makes your drive unstoppable.
Okay, so we get the science, we've seen the story. Now, how do we actually put this into practice? Let's dive into a toolkit you can use right now to assess and max out each one of your own intrinsic motivators.
First up, curiosity. Ask yourself this really simple question. Where does your mind naturally go when you're supposed to be doing something else? Think about the last month. How often did you actually want to read or watch something related to your work, even when you weren't on the clock? That's your compass. That's your curiosity speaking.
And to boost it, you need two things. First, leverage. The new stuff you're learning has to have a real, tangible impact on your work. And second, you need immediate feedback. You've got to see the results of what you learned in real time. If there's no clear link between learning and results, you've got to change your work to create that link.
All right, next up, mastery. Do you feel a genuine desire to just get better and better at your core skills? Think about the last month. How much did you feel that fire in your belly to improve at the key skills your job requires?
To turn this dial up, first, get super clear on the specific skills that are going to move the needle on your long-term goals. Then, you've got to treat it like you're a professional athlete. Use what's called deliberate practice. That means constantly pushing yourself right to the edge of your comfort zone, analyzing what went wrong, and correcting those mistakes over and over again.
Now for autotelicity, which is really just a fancy way of saying you love the activity itself. So how often do you find yourself just diving into work, not because you have to, but just because you want to? When does that line between work and play just completely disappear for you?
And here is an amazing, kind of counterintuitive tip to boost this. Don't just ask, what do I love to do? Instead, ask yourself a much simpler question. What am I naturally good at? See, your innate strengths are natural triggers for flow. The more you can build your work around those strengths, the more time you'll spend in flow, and the more you'll actually come to love the work itself.
Okay, let's talk about purpose. This is a big one. At a gut level, does your work feel like it's contributing to something bigger than you? Is it a cause you can really, truly get behind and pour your life force into?
To really amplify your sense of purpose, start by boiling down your personal mission into a single, laser-focused sentence. Then, every single day, consciously connect each little task on your to-do list back to that big-picture purpose. And this isn't just some mental trick. Doing this actually ramps up key neurochemicals like oxytocin and serotonin, which are crucial for your long-term well-being.
And finally, we have autonomy, the feeling of control. So think about the last month. How much did you feel like you were in control of the how, the what, or the when of your work?
You can boost this in two key ways. First, perceptually. Even if you're in a job with very little autonomy, you can frame it as a strategic, chosen step in a larger life plan that you are designing. Second, you can gain what you might call FU skills and an FU network, basically making yourself so valuable that you always have options. This creates a backdrop of choice, which is huge for autonomy. Even just taking total control over a small part of your week can make all the difference.
When you get all 5 of these motivators aligned and humming along, something truly remarkable happens. You start to develop this trait that can only be described as being a Zen warrior. You get the calm detachment of a monk, but combined with the intense focus and engagement of a warrior.
And that's really the end game here. You become detached from needing external rewards like money or status, but at the same time, you become completely obsessively engaged with the process of the work itself. You become untouchable, finding this incredible state of being where just doing the work, that is the only reward you'll ever need.